First of all, as I had talks today in the city, we in MOD, we discussed a lot about this new strategic review to show how complicated things. No, I cannot say that in a coalition government things are complicated. That's the wrong place to say this. As you joined this proposal, this example of success we have since years in Germany. We have had a long time in between the new strategic national concepts. If I just refer that in 1974 there was a very good white book about Verteidigung im Bündnis, defense in the alliance, which after the NATO reform after Hamel gave a position and an explanation of what our understanding of security is. It took up to 1982 and then to 1996 to have another one. And between 1994 and 2006, we had no new white book. Taking in account that in between world has reasonably changed, this seems to be a too long time. So we now, after the 2006 white book, we have seen two things. The first is that global and national changes are coming faster. And second is that we should change our attitude towards strategic thinking. Germans are tending to have a Gesamtkonzept and to work long and to have it and to implement it. We have now decided, and I may say this also on behalf of Minister Karl-Theodor zu Guttenberg, is that we should, and by the way, I had the honor to chair the Bundestag House of Commons parliamentary group up to 2005. After 2005, it was a young fellow I asked him to do that. He has something to do in Parliament. I joke, Karl-Theodor zu Guttenberg. Now, as he has taken over some other responsibilities as the Minister of Defense, we just said and have seen that your frequency of having white papers and of having in-between strategic reviews seems to be more appropriate to the change of situation than our traditional way. So we will have political guidance beginning next month or in March, and we are thinking whether we should have a new white book or probably white paper in due time. I say this because the framework of reform of the Bundeswehr cannot be seen without the need of adapting the structures of the Bundeswehr to the challenges of new threats and of new strategic concepts, as that is first and most important the new NATO strategic concept, and the second Lisbon, the Treaty of Lisbon, the increase of the possibilities of cooperation in between the European Union. So this is the first reflection. The second is that we had and have to see that we went through a tremendous change in German security policy experience. Verteidigung im Bündnis, defense in alliance, has not that much to do with army in mission, which is a new experience for us. And so we thought we should start not only with a strategic concept, but this is a start, but to bring down it to the structures of the Bundeswehr also at the same time. At the beginning of last week, my State Secretary colleague submitted a comprehensive proposal for the restructuring of the Bundeswehr to the Federal Minister of Defense and presented it to the public. His proposed reform is based on recommendations issued by the Bundeswehr Structural Commission, which was set up by the Federal Minister of Defense and sat from April to October last year. This report, which we had agreed on in the coalition treaty with the new Christian liberal government, this report starts with a very brief but succinct comment on the state of the Bundeswehr today and opens with a word, so quote, "The troops are on operations and the helicopter doesn't take off. NH-90 stands for the NATO helicopter of the 90s of the last century. But this is 2010 and the helicopter still hasn't taken off. At present, 250,000 soldiers are needed to deploy just 7,000 on operations, which is the figure which is actual the size of German troop contributions to international commitments. In other words, behind every soldier on operational deployment, there are 35 other soldiers and 15 civilian employees on routine duty or providing support. This touches on just some of the Bundeswehr deficits." Unquote. The key sentence here is, "The troops are on operations." It highlights the fact that the restructuring of the Bundeswehr is first and foremost a result of the security challenges of the present and the future. Focus on operations constitutes the foundation needed to put the armed forces, an element of German security policy, in a good position to master future challenges. The fact is that following the massive restructuring process undertaken a good 20 years ago, to turn the Bundeswehr into the army of the unity, the further reforms that were implemented took insufficient account of the fundamental changes in the security environment after the end of the East-West conflict. So the purpose of the reform now in line for implementation is to ensure that Bundeswehr's transition from the army of unity, which was a success story, to the army on operations. And this following to the basis laid in strategic concepts. Just to put it in figures, we talked about 250,000, which is the size of the Bundeswehr today. The Army of the Unity, which was the combination of the old West Free Europe bloc Bundeswehr with 12 divisions and 500,000 or 495,000 soldiers, plus 170,000 soldiers of German origin and German descent, but not serving in a democratic army, but in the National People's Army of the GDR. We took over after a very interesting time, where now today we see that it was a success story, about 20,000 of them as officers, as sergeants into the Bundeswehr. So we had a peak of 670,000 in 1990, 1st of October. And then we had to decrease the figures to 370,000. This was the limit, the ceiling, which was in the 2+4 treaty fixed with the Allied powers. So now we next went down to 250. But honestly spoken, those 370,000 were somehow legacy forces. they were nothing else than the understanding that we are here, like Bundeswehr in my time when I did my compulsory military service in the 70s. We learned we are here to produce security, and we are here never ever to make use of a weapon, because if we have to make use of it, we have failed in producing security. So this was a very static understanding, very correct in the sense that the largest conventional contribution to the NATO structure was the Bundeswehr. It was an efficient army, but it was an army in the waiting room and not an army in mission. So we now have, after 15 years in mission, after our experience that in Yugoslavia, things are not only to be handed over to the United States of America, but that we have to define our own interests, which was somehow a little bit strange to German foreign and security policy. Defense in the alliance, 1974. We defined our interests as interests of the alliance. And now, to act on our own and to see that this probably requests that you have to go abroad, that you have to go beyond the limitations of the geographic limitations of the alliance, made us step-by-step understanding that we have to reorganize our army. There has begun and just fixed a lot, but it was somehow a step-by-step approach and not a strategic approach. Just to give an example, when I took office together and following the new minister, Franz Josef Jung, in 2005, we had a lot, not a lot, but for German understanding, a lot of casualties in Afghanistan. And we thought, and especially the government before, the Red Green government said, you're just here to maintain peace and to negotiate and to help the people there to come to a reasonable understanding how they have to organize their lives. You're not here as occupants. So the misunderstanding that this means that military is just as it was in the waiting room in the times of the Ost-West conflict misleaded us. We had out of these vehicles, military vehicles, no tanks, no chains, but only wheels. We had 90% not protected because this was not necessary. And then we got losses, and we today have in reverse 95% protected and reasonably well protected cars. So this was not only about changing the structure or the protection of armored vehicles, but it was to change the thinking behind, which made us gave us a lot of challenges and questions in the recent years. Now, after having experience, after seeing that our ministry is also oriented to have structures, should I say peace structures? Yes, I should say, because just the naming of the word "we are at war," this is not like when President Bush said this in the United States. Sometimes we got the impression that this is something of calling for rallying around the flag. If you talk in Germany about to be at war, I think something would have went wrong in the last 60 years if there would be a cheering crowd and saying, oh, let's do it and let's go. So the first was Karl Theodor zu Guttenberg to name the reality where our missions are already. They are in war-like situations. And if you don't confess to yourself, the public, and sometimes the political leaders, that you are at in warlike situations, you don't organize yourself for warlike situations. And this is what we now are doing in the understanding of our Army on operations and our program we're doing now. I think I should not and have not to describe the challenges for the future, as we all know that these are challenges which are not only to be answered with tank battalions, but there are remaining challenges and threats where we need battalions and military force. But we had at the security conference in Munich a lot of talk about the cyber attacks and cyber war. Stated that probably we all research institutes, all politicians, and all knowledgeable people have to think a little bit more about how we could implement prevention, reaction, and probably a little bit more in the field of cybersecurity, as just to refer to one statement of the former Australian Prime Minister and now Foreign Minister Kevin Rudd, who said we are talking about the future as if this would be something in a far future. It is reality of today, and we have not yet settled and found solutions. So we do not put this aside, but today I can and I will report just about what, let me say, some of the conventional structures are reorganized and how far we offer some contact points to these new challenges, because you come very close to constitutional questions, not only in our country. You see, what is defense, what is offense in this field, what is the task of the military, what is the task of other security institutions. So I'm sure this would be a possibility to spend another hour of discussion at RUSI or elsewhere. We just plan to say, and that we have to bring the Bundeswehr to match the challenges of tomorrow. Needs some historic decisions, as we need with limited resources. We all are talking about budget limitations after the financial crisis. Limited resources, but a full-service army which is able to meet the challenges. This realization has led us to take what is a historic decision for Germany. We will be suspending conscription as from 1st July 2011. What was a conscript army from its very beginning will then become a volunteer army. And if I may add, it's not ideologically conscript system, but it was part of the thinking that after the experiences of German forces in the past, there must be definitively a need to integrate this new army in a society as the democratic army, and to have as many as possible relations to the civil society. So we saw that a volunteer army would not be appropriate. Today we must see that after 60 years, 2 generations of a democratic army in a democratic country, this is possible, and we do not have the fear that there will be a state in the state like we had experienced it in former periods of our history. But this change of paradigm cannot be overestimated. However, it will render significantly more servicemen and women available for deployment operations. By the way, we have a strange contradiction. The first is that I have to say that in this year, just yesterday, the day before yesterday, I had the honor to get the confession. They don't. There is not a. They are not sworn in, but they give a confession that they are doing their service for freedom and for the freedom of Germany and for the right and for democracy. I had the last in Augsburg to have their solemn ceremony there. We have to confess and to constate that only 17% of every year young men did the service because we did not need any more. And if you have 17, and if you add more than 7, 18, 19% who did the social service, which they are allowed to do due to their to the Constitution, it remains that the majority of young men did no service at all. We have not yet get a decision of the Constitutional Court, but you may smell in the air that things are not going in the right way. On the other side, it is that we have to expect that the demographic development will bring us into a lot of complications. Why? As we have to struggle and to fight for the best of them. They are getting less. Those born in the year 1990, young men in Germany were about 400,000. We have 60,000 servicemen compulsory up to now. In the year 1997, we had 350,000. So probably one could say, okay, let's wait. When sometimes we will have a balanced situation, but we cannot forget that at the same time in the economy and the competition to get well-skilled, well-trained young men and women gets more and more intensive. And that we have to, we have the same sources, and so I think it's better if we have not a sense, a military sense, a real sense behind. As now we have 6 months of conscript system, you can send de facto anybody after 6 months into mission to Afghanistan. And by law, as we do just for the home defense, they are allowed to work. So we made this decision, and this brings us, I referred to a number of deficits at the beginning in a quotation from the Structural Commission report. In addition to procurement programs that take much too long to realize and are extremely expensive, we have identified deficits in the personnel structure and in material that considerably impair the armed forces' sustainability on operations. Cumbersome decision-making processes and tedious procedures are likewise the result of a form of organization at the ministry level that has undergone little change since German reunification. Well-trained and highly motivated personnel hamper each other in structures that are not able to ensure success. I don't want to joke and make jokes about the ministry. I'm part of the leadership of the ministry, and I would deny any affections. But if it is the case that before I can, the minister or me, able to offer to the parliament or to the cabinet proposals for increasing the attractivity in terms of getting better salary while we're working on better professional training possibilities, we need 38 paragraphs on the paper. And I had in December to say to the budget committee of the Bundestag that I'm not able to report because I have only 34 of these paragraphs. Maybe every paragraph has its value, but probably could it be just with 20 also working? So this is why we thought we should reduce our structures in the ministry from 3,200 to 1,700, 1,600 about. This is where we start. And we will have a chart. Up to now, the Bundeswehr did not have a chart, the chief of defense. Why? Also history. As the Bundeswehr was founded in 1955, it was, I like to refer to Lord Ismay's saying about the sense of NATO. I'm sure you know this wording. It is to keep the Russians out, the Americans in, and the Germans down. And one part of this structure was not to give the Germans the possibility to have one chief of defense. We had a lot of kingdoms, of services, and they had the immediate right to go to the minister, but the real chief of defense of the Bundeswehr was the Supreme Allied Commander Europe of NATO. And now, under the terms of missions and the necessity to organize joint missions on national level, this does not work out any longer. So we have a chief of defense in future. We will, on the same way, put all commanders in chief of the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, out of the ministry. They will be somehow reduced to commanders under the command of the High Commander, the chart. This maybe you say, what's new about this? That's somehow a little bit, it's not a revolution, but it's a devolution, which puts an end to the requests of the Allied countries to say, shouldn't you have a better capability to contribute to missions? We will increase with our structures, leaner structures in the military. I'm from 7,000 to a ceiling of 10 to 15,000 at the same time in mission. This is our goal. And we want to have 185,000 instead of 250,000 as personnel. The civilian personnel will be reduced similarly. We have seen another thing. This is what I would like to add, that we are not alone on the world, and that the requirements of reorganization also meet other countries. So it requires the nations to show a will to be honest in their analysis and prepared to enter into cooperation on a sustainable basis. That's not a declaration for European army, but between European army and our situation today, there's a lot of space of maneuver. So we are offering and adding, not as that we do not see that our capabilities and international obligations would not be fulfilled, but we see that we should have a sharing and pooling initiative on the European side. I know very much that this sharing and pooling works out beyond training than if there is reliability among all nations. This could be on a bilateral basis. Better it is on a multilateral basis, because if you have too many bilateral relations, the texture is so complicated that you don't see where we're starting and we're ending. So I think that CSDP could be a framework, but I understand and I see that this could be a step-by-step approach. So I think the Franco-British approach of bilateral cooperation in procurement is not against this thing. I'm very happy that we have now fixed with with the British government, with the MOD, that we have a joint working group on a bilateral basis between Germany and the United Kingdom to think about not to contradict, but to add to the structures of the most important players in the political and security and economic field of European community and European integration, that we have a necessity to add and to review our national capabilities with transparency, and maybe sometimes a merge, sometimes pooling, and sometimes a clear position that this should be and remain in national responsibility alone. This is where we are in. I have not yet stressed NATO. Maybe we could continue in Q&A. Thank you very much. Bundeswehr is not reduced, it's reformed. And reforming means that we are offering more capabilities to our alliance and to ourselves as we think we need it. Thank you.